just wanted to give a massive thank you to everyone that came along to our community seminar at the end of November. We were lucky enough to have Phil from Red Paddle talk to us about circular design, talking to us about how they embed principles of the circular economy right from the design stage for their paddleboards. I was then lucky enough to talk about Future Shift's journey in the past year, giving updates about where we've been and our progress so far. Then looking into the future, we were able to look about what's around the corner from B Corp with the addition of the new BIA coming out next year. Really exciting, however, that in the end of January, we're going to have Bruce from Left-Handed Giant come and talk to us about their B Corp journey so far. So on the 25th of January, sign up now. Cheers.
So a little bit about us. We started off in November 2020. A couple of young cherubs, some dodgy haircuts. And we feel like we've come a fairly long way since. We didn't really have a clue what we were doing then. We just came together and like, well, Oscar, what can we do? Can we make a sustainability consultancy? Yes, I guess so. What can we do with it? Something around B Corp. Eventually did a whole year of kind of designing what we potentially could do. Went kind of commercially productive last year. And it's been a big year for us. And eventually, thanks to kind of the support to everyone here, the way that you've kind of helped us along, just in terms of a business sense or in terms of providing us help and guidance, we've managed to turn into 1.5 times. We've got the new edition of Tom in October 2022, which means that we have more power to kind of work towards our mission. We have someone who's probably brighter than both Oscar and I to kind of keep us in a track. And for us, it feels like a huge moment, almost, being able to bring someone else along the journey. But that's us. That's our main update. But with B Corp, there is a pretty big update in terms of there's 1,000 UK B Corps. And this graph kind of shows how crazy this ride's been from 2015 to 2014. There was around 19, I think, at the start in 2014. Now there's over 1,000. And if you look at the way that 2021 to 2022 leap has gone, that's the forecasted one, so it's a bit over 1,300. But it's literally multiplied by over 2 times. And that kind of trajectory seems to only be going upwards. So everyone here is part of the kind of early innovators group. I think we're now starting to see the early majority joining in, and it's becoming almost suspect in its emission, B Corp. If you're not a sustainable business, or if you are a sustainable business, and you decide not to become B Corp, it's questionable almost now. People say, why are you not doing that? And it's quite fun. It's quite a good place to be. So it's also gaining a bit more respect, a bit more, people recognize it more. Like my mum recognizes it, or my nan. Which is always good. But they've got to this point of what next. The sustainability landscape is always changing. And B Corp has had to evolve. The world is evolving as well. And they need to kind of be this relevant symbol of leadership in terms of what sustainability should look like. So the current performance requirements, everyone probably knows, it's 80 points. Very simple, more ticks. Gives you more tick boxes, and more tick boxes gives you more points. Effectively, you can pick and choose what you want to do within the standards. So within the BIA, you can have a certain amount of scoring in governance. You don't really have to score too high in environment, which is maybe questionable, but it's built to be very flexible, which is because it allows every single sector to kind of come under it. But it means that you can have organizations in there that maybe aren't so good. People like Brewdog, for example, who score really highly on workers, to come under this. So they've decided to change it and evolve. And what this looks like is this new complicated target. So there is now no more points, but companies have to meet non-negotiable standards within 10 topics. So that one, if you squint your eyes at the very top that says impact management, that is the BIA. That is the 1/10 of the overall kind of standard now. There's 4, they call it intersecting standards or intersecting topics, which is those top 4: collective action, purpose, stakeholder governance, and risk standards. which are they're about your mission. They're about what you're doing towards your mission. You don't actually have to show too much in the way of points in that impact management in the BIA. It's just about showing some kind of completion towards it. Then you've got fair wages, worker engagement, JEDI, and human rights, which is 4 social elements. And then you've got 2 environmental elements, which are climate action and circularity and environmental stewardship. What this all means, no one really knows just yet. Talking last week at the big 1000 UK B Corps event in London with a couple of the members of B Lab. They're also not too sure. It's a very long-winded process that's going to be released way out in 2024. It's going to change a lot. So try not to worry too much about what it all means. But effectively, the reasons why they are doing it is having these non-negotiables means that B Lab can accelerate business action on pressing areas. So instead of picking and choosing, they can say, no, look, everyone that wants to be a sustainable business has to have a net zero strategy. Everyone that wants to be a B Corp business has to show fair wages within their supply chain, which is excellent in terms of being that leadership, being that evolution, and what is a sustainable business. And effectively what it will mean for you is that B Corp will mean more. Instead of being this exclusive group of you can pick and choose, you're shown to have gone really, really hard at sustainability, and you've met the most up-to-date standards of sustainability. But also, it is still in draft standards, like I said, until 2024. It's a long-winded process. It's going to chop and change. They mentioned last week that they want to bring back the point system because companies, organizations like to be able to show some kind of market improvement. It's likely to change a lot, so don't worry about it too much. The phased approach, so it's going to be released in 2024, but obviously, if you're only given a month to really get down and submit, you're going to be able to choose which standards you do through a grace period. So again, they're going to be quite lenient. They still want businesses to become B Corp. So they're not going to put too many obstacles in the way there. And also, finally, you're not alone. There are 1,000 UK B Corps. There are probably 1,000 in the queue. And you have us as well to be this, well, I was going to say beacon, but maybe not beacon, but we should understand a little bit more. So never feel like you're alone and a bit bewildered about what's going on. The B Corp community itself is really good at just sharing as much as possible, and we can be there to be the experts, in inverted commas. Which is our update done, which means I'm now going to pass over to Tom and Phil from Red Paddle. So I will stop sharing my screen for this Q&A. And if you want to view someone else that isn't, I don't know, Tom or Phil, you can pin.
Cool, great. Well, thanks, Will. So before I start interviewing Phil, I just want to give a bit of a context to how I know Phil. I met Phil about a month ago at the Blue Earth Summit, which is this little sustainability fest going on in Bristol. And I remember we were chatting over a couple of pints at the end of the festival, and Phil was basically spouting all of this wisdom and knowledge about circular design and Red Paddle. And basically, I'm hoping in this interview to recreate that conversation, for better or for worse.
I think we had a beer, didn't we?
Yeah, maybe just one beer.
Non-alcoholic beer.
Sure. Yeah, non-alcoholic, of course. So yeah, Phil, I was wondering, could you give us a bit of context behind who Red Paddle are, what's your mission and what's your vision, and how did you come to be head of design?
Thanks, Tom. So just quickly, hi everyone. I'm Phil, head of design here at Red. Red Paddle Co. is the #1 inflatable paddleboard brand, and when I say that, everyone can say that they're #1. When I say #1, what I actually mean is we're the market leader in regards to innovation and pushing the boundaries, which is fact. There's no other brand in our sector that innovates like we do. And when I say innovates, I don't just mean coming out with products. I also mean pushing the growth of the company, and in particular ESG and our B Corp circularity processes, which I'll come on to. So yeah, I joined Red Paddle 7 years ago. seven and a bit years ago, after working with Innovate UK and the Ellen MacArthur Foundation on a project that was helping Kingfisher, which is the owners of B&Q and Screwfix, create a circular take-back system. It's called a PSS, Product System Service, where I proposed that we charged customers for consumables, and they loaned out the tool. So that was the call, and I think that got interest from several parties, and somehow I ended up working at Red. My love of the outdoors is probably the reason. I just love being outside, being in the water. So yeah, that's how I pretty much got into Red. With regards to how I got here, we're a small company, 35 people, but we have a global reach. I think it's distributed in about 60 countries, and we mainly produce in China, which obviously for some people has some negative images, but I think we're trying to work on that, and I think China's trying to work on it, to be honest. I mean, there's several different types of China, but yeah, we produce in China.
Cool. And like a big part of the work you do, Phil, and what you passionate about is circular design. So I'm wondering, for those who aren't so well versed, could you explain to us what the philosophy of circular design is and how that affects your work at Red?
Yeah, I live and breathe circular economy. That's what I love. So the idea, if anyone doesn't know about what the circular economy is, most businesses and we have a linear system. So we dig up materials, we take, we make, we use, and then we dispose. So cradle to grave. Whereas a circular economy, at its end of life, it's more easily recoverable. So hence cradle to cradle, the circular economy. And coming from an engineering and design background, we need to be able to design out waste. Now, everyone says design out waste. What does that mean? How do I do that? I mean, it's very good when you go to some of these workshops and webinars, and they say loads of fluffy words, and you go, right, great. How can I apply that to what I do? How can I help? And in the context of physical delivery of products, there are 5, they're called product lifecycle strategies that you can do to start trying to shift your organization from a linear economy and just try and start just making it a bit more circular, helping, trying to make as much of an impact as possible. So these 5 strategies, you've got resource minimization, low impact selection, life optimization, material life extension, and DFD. So the first one would be resource minimization, making sure that you're not using more material than you have to. You'd be amazed at how many physical products actually use, digital products as well. I mean, this is the thing, it's everything. I mean, I'm working with our e-coms team at the minute to try and raise awareness with making sure that you're using just the right amount and you're not using excessive amounts of material, which when you say it like that, it sounds like common sense, but it's amazing how many companies don't do that. I mean, they might want to build in redundancy, they might not care. There's very different things. So resource minimization is a big one. Low impact resource selection is making sure the material that you're using is actually not a bad material, or it's less bad, just a responsible. So for instance, we create an active jacket, it's a shell jacket, but the material, the fabric that we use was Blue Sign accredited. Now, if you're not familiar with Blue Sign, that they have to accredit factories and materials to make sure that they are compliant with a lot of ESG or CSR, depending on where you look at it, criteria. So to make sure that the water, the energy, what they do is better than your average stock. So that would be a low impact resource selection. Product life optimization, make sure that your product can be repaired, or make sure you're enabling your customer to maintain their product and keep their product in the cycle for as long as possible. By doing that, obviously you're offsetting the amount of time that a product ends up in landfill ultimately. And the same with material life extension. The next one would be when we talk about designing out waste, the designer, the guys, and when I say designer, I don't mean a trained designer. I mean the person that's come up with the idea, who's pushing this, who's really driving it, is conscious about the decisions that they make have a huge impact, not just in the life of the products, but in the life of the material. So if we, for instance, if we designed this, if we made this glass, if I decided to, I don't know, paint it with some ink or a dye or something, that's great for the one time, but you've got to think about the quality of the material, because it's the material at its end of life. If this glass is a pure material, I can melt that down and someone further on down the line can reuse this material. So the material has value. If I contaminate this with ink, say, then the person at the end of the line might not want that color. How are they going to separate those things? So you've got to think about the impact that you're going to have, what happens next to that material, because every molecule needs to have value, it needs to be considered. And I think we really take it for granted, the impact that we have, not just in our lifespan, but future generations. And finally, the last one would be design for disassembly. This comes back from my initial days of trying to recover, working with Innovate UK, of you need to be able to recover these products, these materials. If it's difficult and it's time consuming for someone at the end of a product's end of life to take it apart, they're not going to take it apart. So if you can facilitate them taking it apart to separate these materials so they're easy to capture, so they're easy to reuse, then that's how you start to transition from a linear to a circular economy. Now, all of these things, as I've said, you can apply in, like I said, in the digital space, in the physical space. You can influence communication of different things, and it's all just pushing. As long as we calling it taking steps to be more responsible, so long as we are better today than we were yesterday, then I think that's a nice direction to be. Because we use composites, we use carbon fiber, glass fiber. Our boards, our main product offering is a composite. Now, at the minute, that can't be recovered. So we need to make sure that that stays in existence for as long as possible, in use, and retains a value to a customer for as long as possible. So that it doesn't end in landfill. So we facilitate, we can send out repair patches, we can provide service in that way. And by doing that, you can not only maintain that product's life in its entirety, but you can also build the brand reputation, because you're providing a service to a customer at a margin of the cost. Because if they broke, say our pump is DFD, so we can, if a part breaks in a pump now, the whole pump is rendered unusable. So the customer would normally have to go and buy a new pump. They might not come back to us. They might buy another pump. Whereas if we can say, no, we can sell you that spare part for a fraction of the cost, they come to us, they've repaired their pump, which is what they need the value for, $1, $2, $3. So they've saved that cost. They've come to us, we've retained that customer, and we've been able to wow them with customer service, providing a service. Maybe that will either build brand representation, that will build our brand reputation, or maybe they'll buy some more from us. We could upsell them at the time. So it's a very holistic approach, thinking about circular product life cycles anyway.
And so now that you're kind of going through the process of going B Corp, how do you expect having that will now influence your own role as head of design of the business and just the way your business runs generally?
Good question. So I would say that for me, I mean, I'll just talk about the main thing for me is getting that badge of honor, because it actually shows the work that we've been doing, and in particular the work that I do often goes unseen. A lot of the work, maybe you don't get the recognition in your own organizations, or you just do your thing. But I think having B Corp really, it shines a light on that, and you can say, look, we've done that. That's great. I mean, it's been hard, but as you guys will all attest to, is once you've got that though, spreading the word. That's the thing for me, because sustainability, circularity is about education, because you can't do it on your own. You've got to be part of a team, and you've really got to educate people and help them discover and show and say, oh, this B Corp, and they go, what's B Corp? And you're like, ha, I can tell you about B Corp. And then you can really throw some fuel on the fire, because then they'll start asking questions, and then they'll say, well, and then they'll finish the work and they'll go away, or they'll finish the conversation and they'll start looking for B Corp. And they'll go, oh, I spotted that, I saw that, and then hopefully they'll start thinking more responsibly as consumers, because that's how you influence behavior and business. If business's job is, well, to follow the purpose, but also to create financial return to address that purpose. If there's huge demand, you'd be amazed how quickly businesses will pivot.
Yeah.
And it's raising the bottom of the triangle. You've got a voice at the minute at the top of the triangle. If you can influence the bottom of the triangle, you can get some real movement.
Yeah.
So that's
brilliant. Trickle up economics. So final question, Phil, is, so if you, for a business going B Corp, what one piece of advice would you give to them if they're starting a B Corp?
Talk to you guys. Was that the right answer?
That's good.
Okay. That's what I was saying. Okay.
Fair enough. Well, we can leave it at that, because we've got to move out to some breakout rooms.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, if you're asking about B Corp, then you're already on the right path. Just, I mean, like, you'll do it, especially if you've got drive and you want to innovate, add value, and show that you're innovating and adding value. It's a good start.